This is Dr. Ferdinand, and we're about to start a GAMSAT level tutorial. And yes, those are not two bullets on the Master Series book. Those are earplugs, just as a reminder. Um, I'll mention that in a moment. But before we begin, if you don't mind sharing where you happen to be on this lovely Sunday in the world, you can just put the city in the chat. Then everyone will know we're about to get started. All right. Great. Thank you. So, I'd like to congratulate you. Uh, for those of you all over the world who have completed the first part of your GAMSAT, which used to be called Section 2, but which is clearly Section 1. Well, Acer won't call it anything but what it is, which is written communication. So congratulations on finishing that part of your exam. And now it's time to switch gears. I know that can be challenging, but to switch the way you think about this exam and pour your energy into practicing for the humanities section and practicing for the science section. So most of your time should be spent practicing for both. The last thing you should be saying at this time of the year is, what should I be reading to prepare for GAMSAT? If you're reading at all, it should be spending perhaps 10 or 20% of your time reading, and that's only if you absolutely are sure that that assumed knowledge is required for you in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, you should be spending 80 to 90% of your time at least with practice questions. And that will help you to develop your skills, even at this late stage. Even at this late stage, is to help you develop your skills in reasoning, which will be applied to the actual exam. It's not the questions per se that are going to show up on the exam. It's not that. Sometimes the topics are similar, sometimes, but it's the reasoning. It's the levels that you need to go through to find that breadcrumb trail through the forest, because you're going to be put in the forest repeatedly. It's not like written communication where, you could be presented with topics that if you did a lot of essay writing, a lot of preparation, then you could be presented with topics that, oh, I know some things that do apply to this situation that is similar to, and I can tailor my response to this theme using one or more quotes. That's written communication. But for humanities and for sciences, ACER's objective is to be presenting you with new information. So at approximately half of the questions are brand new. Half of the questions are called, sort of link questions or old questions from previous exams. So if you sat GAMSAT before, there's a significant chance that some of the units will seem familiar to you. So that's about half the questions, but half are brand new, and ACER just coming up with topics that are unlikely that you've heard of those things before, which makes it fundamentally different from a normal exam. A normal exam, you study at home, content in the notes or in the textbook, and then when you sit the exam, what you studied is reflected in what you see on the exam paper. Sounds quite normal, right? So that's introductory level, undergraduate studies. But what ACER is doing is trying to put you into novel situations so that it feels unfamiliar to you. So the key is to learn how you solve problems, to learn how you solve puzzles that are presented to you. And so that when a new puzzle is presented to you, you know how to look at the different pieces. So we're going to be looking at some challenging questions from a GS-free exam today. And I want you to, when you go through the solutions, some of you, will obviously do better than others. But if you don't do well, the issue is how much practice are you doing to solve puzzles, to solve these types of practice questions? If you've done dozens, then you're at primary school level. If you've done 100 more, okay, a couple of hundred, okay, you're getting to secondary school level. And then once you've done many hundreds or thousands of humanities and science multiple choice questions, now you're at the master's level. So that, of course, is what you're trying to do. I'll also just mention, something that you might want to consider is, well, some of you will be sitting the exam in at home again, or some of you might be sitting the exam in a test center. Those of you sitting the exam at home are 3 hours or more from a test center. Then you can apply for the permission to sit the exam at home or at another location with a private room. But for most of you, you'll be sitting the exam at a test center. Of course, you'll be getting there early. You may want to consider bringing earplugs because some students don't have a plan as to what to do with their A4 sheets of paper or whiteboard when they arrive. And other students have a plan. They have ideas they want to put on the paper, some words or expressions that they struggled with um, for for the humanities section or some equations, some very, very basic equations like Ohm's law or Newton's second law, V equals IR, F is equal to MA. I mean, most students should have that, down packed. And by the way, I'm saying very, very basic equations because it has to be that you went through ACER's materials and you witnessed that that question cannot be solved without knowing this. It can't be that you're thinking those are equations that I had to use or memorize in undergrad or in secondary school, something like that. It's not that. It has to be that ACER has proven to you that those equations had to be known. And if you were struggling with those equations for whatever reason, then you might have a plan that as soon as you sit down and the exam begins, because you can't write until the exam begins, but once it does begin, that you make some brief notes. But it's just that if you are in the exam room and you don't have such a plan or whatever, if you do hear other people writing or typing very early in the test, that could stress you out, and that could distract you. And so you may want to be sure that everything is fine by having earplugs or something like that. And then your plan for the test itself, you should be practicing your plan. Ideally, you start practicing, completing full-length tests, meaning the humanities section and the science section on the same day with a 20-minute break in between during the time that you have scheduled for the real exam. And that way you're starting to get your body and your mind, ready for that experience. So you complete multiple tests with the same number of questions, with the same timing as the current exam. And I'm emphasizing that because most, not all of ACER's materials have old timing. It has the old number of practice questions and it has the old number of minutes per question. But you just need to adapt their materials so that you complete full-length testing during the same time frame as you will have for the real exam. And also you're monitoring your food intake, your caffeine intake, your sleep, everything around that you're going to maintain is the same thing for the exam day to optimize your experience. And of course, if you're doing, practice, ACERS practice tests over the next couple of weeks, you know that I put the step-by-step work solution to all the 440 multiple choice science questions on YouTube that you can access to make sure that you understand all the basic reasoning behind it. And I will likely add one more webinar next weekend. It'll be posted after this during the week with the details in which I'll go over some other important questions from ACER's materials. But today we're going to go over from the Gold Standard GS free exam. And I'll just let you know, we're going to do six questions, six multiple choice questions. And because it's the new timing of the exam, okay, so this is post-pandemic because it was changed significantly. You have 2 minutes per question. So that's sort of how you're gauging your timing. And that's how you should be doing it for the real exam as well. Keeping an eye every half an hour that you've completed 15 questions. And so we will be completing 6 questions, and they're going to cover chemistry, biology, and physics. And you will find that all the biology that you can study in the world wouldn't still not change how you will perform. And all the chemistry, which happens to be organic chemistry, it doesn't affect what you're going to see. And for physics, tiny bit of very, very, very basic equations are helpful. Okay, so first we're going to get you into the system. GS Free is obviously a free full-length exam. It's a full-length exam, so later you can go through the humanities section, formerly called Section 1. So first of all, you can go to gamsatprep.com and log into your account. And if you don't have an account, you go to gamsatprep.com and you click on register in the top right corner. So that's gamsat-prep.com. So once you have logged in, just put there or I'm there in the chat. If you're having any trouble logging in, G's here to help you. G and Viv are here to help. Okay, I'm just going to wait until more people have logged in, and then we're going to go to the questions. And then we're going to make a timer for 12 minutes so that you'll have 12 minutes to complete these questions in the section formerly known as Section 3. It's still the third section of the exam, but of course, it's formally called Reasoning in Biological and Physical Sciences, which I'm just calling sciences. So gamsatprep.com, the link is right above you, Rajav. And so you go there and you can click on login if you already have an account. And if you don't have an account, then you click on register so that you have your account and then you log in. So I'm just going to wait for some more theirs. Okay, great. I just want to make sure that people are logged in, and then we're going to go to the test. And then you'll be opening the test, and then we'll start our timer. Then you'll be completing the questions, and then you'll be going through the work solutions. And then if there are issues, with the solutions. Okay, so you're asking for the test, so that means you're in. Okay, so click on tests in the top menu, scroll down, and you will see GS Free. click on tests in the top menu and scroll down to see GS free. And if you see a poem, that's not what we're doing. We're doing the third section of GS free, which is reasoning in biological and physical sciences. So the third section. So you can open up that test. And once you have the test open, just put there or on there, and then we can, yes, it's free. It is free. It's always free, and you can complete the test as often as you want. So um, there's in the top menu, there's a tab that says tests. And if you don't see that, then as soon as you log in, you're going to see, if you scroll down, you're going to see an image of practice tests. You can click on that. Okay. So you're looking at the 6 questions that you're going to be completing, 21, 22, 27 to 29, and question 55. It's going to be chemistry, then biology, and then um, physics. If anybody is struggling to get in there or something, then G will just give you a link so that you can just start practicing the questions, and then you can organize yourself later. So if you're struggling with that, otherwise, okay, G will give you that. Otherwise, there are 6 questions. You're going to have 12 minutes, and G, if you can put that link, and then we'll start the 12-minute clock. It's GS free, GS free. And it's a free full-length test, which you can practice with at any time. And the work solutions are also free.
Do we do that now?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can we do that now?
Just one moment, please. I'm just trying to, okay, there it is. So she put all the things, and now we're just waiting for the Google Drive doc. One moment, please. I just want to make sure that everyone's starting at the same time. So just one moment, please. Okay, great. So everybody can start. So G, the 12-minute clock, please. Please begin. Good luck. Okay, so that's normal timing. However, some of you might be just working on a question, you're almost finished, you sort of see where it's going, finish it because it's more important that you develop the reasoning skills than you just look at solutions. For those of you who had trouble logging into the account, to access the actual exam, G is going to repost the instructions in the chat as to how to log in and click on the tests. And for the one student who said that she clicked start test, but it didn't start, please log in to the account using incognito, and then that'll cancel any cookies on your computer that are blocking your access. And finally, for everyone else, uh, by the way, do you see how the question numbers on the interface that you're using are at the top of the screen? Yeah, that's how Acer has designed the real interface, that the question numbers are all at the top of the screen. So you can click on a question number to go back and forth. That allows you to write down the question number that you're having difficulty with or that you want to get back to. If there's a question you want to get back to, or if you're managing your exam properly and attacking the questions that you have the best chance of doing first, and then you go back and finish the others, then you're on your scratch paper, you're marking that down so that you know you're properly managing your exam. And then you can just click on the question number at the top of the screen to go to where you need to go. And then the end exam is also towards the top. When you click on end exam, but by the way, you can complete this exam as often as you want. It's always free, and the solutions are always free. When you click on end exam, you will be able to see the percentage of students who chose your answer choice so that you can feel a little bit better if you made a mistake. Um, and you click on an exam at the top. And each exam that you finish is saved in your history section. So you can always click on history in the top menu later and to see whatever performance. So you can do the humanities section later and you can do the full science section later if you wish. Okay, so now please click in test. Go through the solutions of these 6 questions. If you have any problems, meaning that there's something that you don't understand in the work solution, just put the question number in the chat and then we'll talk about it. And if you're a superstar and you were able to get 5 or 6 of these questions correct, put that in the chat and then I'll have a suggestion for you. Uh, sure, this is a cooperative environment. But the important thing is that you can answer the questions in the interface, submit, meaning end test, and then look at the solutions, the work solutions, to ensure that you understand what went wrong or what went right for each question. Okay, so Daniel, I'll say superstar, but um, if you have 5 or 6 of the questions correct, then my little gift for you is question 75. So please open up a new test. Okay, so close the test that you have open up a new test and try question 75 and tell me how that went. Anything above 3 questions correct out of 6 is good. And Elvir, have you been able to look at the solutions to the ones that you got wrong? Do they make sense to you? Yes, please end the test, Elvir, and then you'll see the solutions to the ones that you got wrong. As soon as you end test, you can click on the question number that you got wrong, and then you'll have the solution. Sure. I'm just gonna wait, Alicia, until more people have gone through their solutions. And then we'll look at question 22. Remember, it's better to make mistakes today than in 2 weeks. So um, that's why, consider this a study session where you're learning more about yourself and how you deal with novel situations. So far, we have questions 22 and 27. When you're finished all the solutions, uh, just put done or I'm done in the chat once you've finished considering the solutions. So Melinda, L replaces, L stands for length, and meters, meters, well, it's a measurement, the SI unit for length. So you can replace meters with L because it's length. And then T stands for time, and seconds is the SI unit for time. So you can replace seconds at any juncture with T. So far we have 22 and 27. And as I mentioned, if you get bored in the next few minutes as I go through 22 and 27 because you already understand it or anything, you can always try question 75, which, yeah, so you can try 75. And then if you're still bored, you can do some organic chemistry questions in Unit 4. So that'll have you doing some chiral questions while I go through question 22 and 27. Okay, so um, is there a chance that you're going to have a matrix on your exam? It's possible that you could have a mathematical matrix representing organic chemicals in your exam. It's possible, but probability is such that you probably won't, but you're going to have a puzzle. You will definitely have multiple puzzles on your exam. And so Acer likes these types of puzzles because you could have no previous knowledge of organic chemistry, and you will be in a similar situation to someone who's taken an organic chemistry course at university, because this type of modeling is not done at the introductory level at all. So, so both groups are sort of learning. So when you're thinking about GAMSAT, don't think, because many students will go through Acer's materials or even our materials. We have over 15 full-length exams. They go through our materials and they're expecting that when they sit the real exam, they will see that question or they'll see that unit on the real exam. That's highly improbable. Acer is trying their best to keep coming up with situations to put you in a novel situation to see how you learn on the fly. How are you with brand new information that's being presented to you? So don't think that you're going to see a question that reflects that. That's why some students will sit the exam and say, Acer's materials are nothing like the real exam. Well, the point is not to focus on the questions themselves, but how do you respond to puzzles? And that is what is applicable. So here you're being told that you're looking at the row and the column. So the row and the column, and these numbers are giving them to you. And what ACER does often is when you're presented with new information, often, but not always, ACER will give you an example. So, you see the example of 1, 2. So that means, so this is the matrix one, position 1, 2. So that means the first row and the second position, so the second column, and the number is 4. So that's why M12 is equal to 4. And M22, so that's second row, and then 1, 2 columns is the number 5. So they're trying to get you to, get a perspective. And then you're given a molecule and they're converting it for you. So don't forget, at any of these stages, there are potential questions. They can give you a molecule and not convert it for you and get you to do the conversion. So there's potential questions at each level. But nonetheless, we have a molecule here. And here is the name of the molecule, 1-ethyl 2-methylcyclobutane, which is very basic nomenclature, and ACER expects that you know basic nomenclature. So it's drawn and it's stated, but it's possible that there will be an exam question in which it's stated and not drawn, and then you have to be able to do that. Or it's drawn and and the answer choices are all based on nomenclature. So, but this is very basic. So then you have the molecule, and then it's converted into this format, and this format's going to allow you to read the matrices. Notice that there are 7 carbons. And therefore, the matrices that you ended up looking at are all 7 by 7, because each column, each row is going to represent, is reflected in what's happening to one of those carbons. That's why the matrices are 7 by 7, is because there are 7 carbons. So that's another, area of potential questioning. And then what this unit is talking about is, first of all, the issue of adjacency. So something is adjacent means it's next to something else. And the concept of adjacency comes up regularly in organic chemistry in the background. In terms of what's happening to a carbon that's adjacent to another carbon. So it's the carbon that's next to it. So this particular carbon has 1 carbon next to it. This carbon has 1, 2, 3 carbons next to it, and you can see their numbers. And that's going to be reflected in the actual matrix. You're going to be able to see that. So the first matrix, I also want to call your attention to something about these matrices. How far are you from yourself? How far are you from yourself? Obviously, you're not far from yourself because apparently you're yourself. So if you look at this diagonal, it represents how far is the first carbon from the first carbon? How far is the second carbon from the second carbon? How far is the third carbon? So these matrices will always have a diagonal of zeros because that particular atom is that atom. So it cannot be adjacent to itself. And so if this is the diagonal, you can now see that this entire triangle is reflected in the triangle above. So these are little things that happen when you complete many puzzles, is that you start noticing these types of things. This is nothing to memorize. It's just a puzzle that's being presented to you. So then when you look at this position, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. So it doesn't matter if you call it 2, 4 or 4, 2, the number is going to be the same. X is going to be equal to Y. So we only have to know, is atom 4 adjacent to atom 2? That's all you're really looking at. and you can see that they are not adjacent to each other. And so we know x is equal to y, and we know that they're both equal to 0 because they're not adjacent to each other. And so that is 21. And I know you were asking me about 22. So now we're going to talk about the this matrix. And again, you see that the diagonal is all zeros, and this is going to be reflected on this. That means S is equal to R and Q is equal to T. So we know that those are going to be the same. So if I'm only looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So if I'm looking at 4, 3 or 3, 4, and I'm looking at the distance that they are from each other, 4, 3 or 3, 4, the distance obviously is going to be the same, and they're 1 apart. So so that's going to be that S is equal to R, which is equal to 1. And so that's the answer. Now let's just look at Q and T, which are going to be equal to each other. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So it's 5 and 3, and they're 1, 2 apart. So 5 and 3 are 1, 2 apart. And so that is not a option. And so I hope I answered your question about question 22. And then the other question was about question 27. And so for question 27, okay, we'll look at 27, 28. So for question 27, and you see what a trap it is that Acer has identified a concept that most students get wrong. Because for question 27, approximately twice as many students got it wrong that got it right, for question 27. And the idea is very, very fundamental. Some students wonder, why would Acer come up with confusing graphs? Well, it's not because they're just trying to trick you, even though they did trick you, or they do trick you. Obviously, this is the same concept, but it's not the same questions or graph. It's because they're pharmaceutical companies, and they're always trying to sell their drugs or their surgical equipment to you, later in your life, and they try to design graphs in such a way as to that they're rendered confusing, and so in order to emphasize some minor improvement, and so you have to develop the skills to identify when these are correct. And so when you look down here, this is linear. So there's the difference between the time is always the same. It's 2. That's the difference. So this is a linear. But when you're assessing a graph, you always check the units, of course, hours, and here we have our units. You check the units, but you also check the scale. And this is not linear. The difference between 1 and 10 is 9. Between 10 and 100 is 90, then 900, then 9,000. So the differences are exploding, of course, because it's exponential. So sometimes this is called a logarithmic graph or logarithmic scale or semi-log. That's kind of irrelevant, but what's important is that some students sit the exam and will say, I didn't have any logs on my exam. But what is more common is that students didn't identify a logarithmic scale or a logarithmic type question that was on the exam. That's far more common because some form of logs usually comes up on the exam. And so you can see that if this is exponential, it's going to mean that that big changes down here, massive changes down here, are pale in comparison to tiny changes up here. Because up here, we're talking about millions. But down here, we're talking about thousands. So the scale is just completely absurd. So for most of you, what you did is you did a basic analysis as if this was linear. So you see a big change, and then you assume that big change is bigger than this small change. But this big change from, what do we have here? 10 to the 3, which is nothing. It's 1,000. Down here, that's nothing, 1,000. But this tiny change is millions, because this is 10 to the 6. That's 1 with 6 zeros. That's 1 million. And then here is 10 to the 7. That's 10 million. So if you go from 10 million at hour 1 just down a little bit, you don't even have to hit 10 to the 6. You just go down a little bit, then you've gone down by millions. And that's why, if you look at the antagonistic graph, it is by far and away a greater drop in numbers as compared to any of the others. This synergy, the antagonistic graph by far and away, because this is millions and this is peanuts, less than 1,000. In fact, I'll give you an expression to consider when you're dealing with logarithmic graphs. Small changes at the upper aspect of a exponential scale are far more important than big changes at the lower part of the scale. And that's the way it is for exponential. So that is question 27. And if you're still not sure, just put the issue. And then there was a question about 28. Okay, so 28 is the following: best surprise of the difference in viral per mil between the trial and control trial, and so control and antimicrobial alone. What time? Hour 6. Okay, so hour 6, we're going to look at control, and we're going to look at antimicrobial alone. So the dark circle and the white circle. Okay, so let's look at that. The dark circle at hour 6. Okay, so let's see the dark circle at hour 6. So here we have the dark circle at hour 6. And we come across, and let's say it's approximately 10 to the power of 9. Okay, so that's 9 zeros. And then we have the here at hour 6, and we come across, and it's 4 zeros. Okay, so this is what we have. The difference between is the question. So we have 9 zeros here, minus 1 with 4 zeros, and that number is answer choice D. I mean, it's a billion minus 10,000. And when you look at and by the way, of course, there's a more specific answer that you can give, but look at the answer choices. Notice how far apart they are. And because they're so far apart, this difference is approximated by this number because it's massive compared to this number. So what did some of you do? You did division. They asked you, what is the difference between? And the difference between means subtraction. You can't say 10 to the power of 9 divided by 10 to the power of 4 is equal to 10 to the power of 5. True, but why are you dividing? The question specifically said, what is the difference between the numbers? I hope that clarifies that point. Okay, so by the way, you have access to the exam, and that access is permanent. When you have any questions, we also have a discussion board on the website. You just click on discuss this question, and usually within 1 or 2 days, I will respond to your question. So don't feel that you're going to be, burdened by a bunch of challenging questions without any, um, uh, way to find your way back through the forest. So you have access to the work solutions, you have access to some practice questions, and I suggest that you spend most of your time working on that. So I'm 1 minute late for the next tutorial. It starts a 3-hour tutorial. I just want to mention also if if you're online and if you find any of the gold standard practice questions or books or anything helpful to you, and you mention something, I think that saves 100 unicorns because when people hate things, that spreads really quick, but when people like things, it's very rarely shared. So if you can, that would be appreciated. So that's it for today. We'll probably do one more next weekend, but next weekend we'll do questions from Acer's practice materials. So I'm hoping that all of you will have completed Acer's practice materials by next weekend. We'll probably do a unit from the GAMSAT practice test 3 and probably a unit from GAMSAT practice test 1 or 2. So don't worry, you should have access to those. You should have purchased access to those, or gotten a booklet from Gumtree or eBay when Acer used to print out actual booklets. The questions haven't changed, and that's it for today. So good luck with your studies, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.